Standing in the center of Westminster City, Buckingham Palace serves as the official residence and administrative headquarters for the monarch of the United Kingdom. The monarchy uses the palace as a place for royal hospitality and important state occasions. In this video, let's learn 50 fascinating facts about Buckingham Palace. Buckingham Palace resides in the very heart of London, surrounded by the lavish St. James and Green Park. Built as the Buckingham House in 1703, the palace was originally constructed by English gentleman and architect William Wynd as a large townhouse for Duke Buckingham. In 1761, King George III bought the property as a private residence for Queen Charlotte, earning it the title the Queen's House. In the 19th century, the residence underwent renovations, adding 3 additional wings that surround a central courtyard. In 1837, the palace became the London residence of one of Britain's most famous and longest reigning monarchs. In 1982, Michael Fagan broke into the royal residence, entering Queen Elizabeth II's very own bedroom. Buckingham Palace features 775 rooms. Of these rooms, 188 are staff bedrooms, 92 offices, 78 bathrooms, 52 royal and guest bedrooms, and 19 staterooms. In total, the Buckingham Palace grounds spans over 39 acres. Despite the palace serving as an important place for the royal family, the Queen does not in fact privately own the residence. It is instead held in trust by the Crown Estates. Despite the Netflix series, The Crown, setting many scenes in the building, the actual palace was never used by the cast. However, several scenes were filmed in iconic British buildings, such as Lancaster House, Ely Cathedral, and Eltham Palace, to name a few. When the Queen is not in residence, typically around late July to late September, the beautiful staterooms at Buckingham Palace are open to the public, attracting tourists from all over the world. With dimensions of 36.6 meters long, 18 meters wide, and 13.5 meters high, the ballroom earns the award for largest room at the iconic palace. The ceremony of the changing of the guard, also known as guard mounting, occurs just outside of Buckingham Palace at 10:45 and typically lasts around 45 minutes. The actual handover between guards occurs at 11 a.m. Due to the event's widespread popularity, finding a proper viewing spot for the changing of the guard can prove tricky. Join our Changing of the Guard walking tour, which is included free with 24 hours, 48 hours and 72 hours bus tour tickets, and we'll ensure you get the best experience of this historical ceremony. There are a staggering 760 windows and 1,514 doors at Buckingham Palace. Esteemed architect John Nash transformed Buckingham House into the magnificent palace that it is today. However, he went way over budget when reconstructing the building, and was promptly fired from the job. A child, by the name of Edward Jones, managed to break into the palace 3 times, stealing food from the kitchen, the Queen's accessories, and even getting a chance to sit on the throne. While Queen Elizabeth famously calls the palace her home, Princes Philip, Andrew, and Edward all reside there as well, along with a lot of the royal family's staff members. Over the course of World War II, Buckingham Palace survived 9 German bombs attacks. Despite concerns for their own safety, King George VI and Queen Elizabeth, later known as the Queen Mother, refused to leave the palace during the onslaught of German bombings. When the Queen's royal standard flag flies elegantly above the palace, the Queen is currently in residence at the palace. When the Union Jack billows elegantly in the wind, this signals that the Queen is elsewhere. A clockmaker works at the palace, maintaining over 350 clocks and watches, ensuring that time passes smoothly. 2 horological conservators wind the clocks up every week at the palace. The iconic red uniforms that the guards wear were chosen for 2 very practical reasons. At the time the uniforms were created, red was one of the cheapest dyes to manufacture and thus saved the royal family over the cost of clothing the guards. Concerning military strategy, red is the most difficult color to distinguish from a distance. The enemy would thus experience difficulty identifying how many British soldiers they were about to fight. Military bands accompany the guards at the ceremony. They play both traditional military music and a mix of popular music. The Royal Guards, protecting the monarch, can be broken down into 5 infantry regiments. Identifying the placement of tunic buttons is the best way to distinguish between the groups of soldiers. King Henry VII made the Royal Bodyguard a permanent fixture of the royal family, lasting well over 500 years. The first event ever to be held in the palace's magnificent ballroom was a celebration to the end of the Crimean War. Over 40,000 light bulbs fill the entire palace. The ballroom bears the distinction of being the first room to have electricity installed in 1883. A series of secret tunnels run beneath Buckingham Palace. When the Queen Mother and King George VI descended into the tunnels, they apparently met a man from Newcastle living in the tunnels. Over 1 million people from all over the world attended the Queen's Golden Jubilee in 2002. Not just any soldier can take a guard post. Only highly trained soldiers that have fought with great distinction can qualify for the guard. Palace of Whitehall was the first location where the changing of the guard ceremony took place. The guards that do serve the monarchy all volunteer to do so, given that it is a prestigious position and great honor to serve the monarchy so closely. Edward VII still remains the only monarch to both be born and pass away at Buckingham Palace. Despite the introduction of mass media, notices concerning royal births and deaths are still posted outside of Buckingham Palace to keep the public informed. The Palace Garden is the largest private garden in all of London. It features a tennis court, lake, and even a helicopter landing. When the palace is open to the public, tours of the state room can take around 2 to 2.5 hours, lending tourists plenty of time to take in the palace's beauty. Over 50,000 guests are invited to the palace each year. They are entertained at receptions, garden parties, and banquets. The palace holds 3 official garden parties each summer, typically in July. The Queen's Gallery at Buckingham Palace occupies the space wherein the palace's chapel was destroyed in a World War II air raid. In 1851, Queen Victoria made the first ever public appearance on the palace balcony. Little did she know, she started an iconic tradition that continues to this day. King George V enforced rationing within the palace during World War I. This even involved locking the wine cellars and refraining from the consumption of alcohol. In 1938, the royal family converted the Northwest Pavilion into a swimming pool. With a post office, pool, police station, cinema, health clinic, and so many more amenities, Buckingham presents itself as more of a town than a palace. When a German bomb destroyed the palace chapel, footage of the destruction was played in cinemas throughout the UK to reflect that both rich and poor suffered greatly during the war. Garden parties at the palace have been known to include up to 8,000 invitees. Investiture ceremonies take place in the Royal Ballroom. This includes the famous ceremony wherein distinguished British citizens become knighted. The royal family have famously used the balcony, located on the east front, to greet the large crowds that congregate outside the palace. Some of the most famous events include King George V appearance on the eve of World War I, or more recently, the post-wedding kiss shared between Kate Middleton and Prince William. The palace contains over 77,000 square meters of floor space. The wine vaults, located beneath the west wing, serve as the oldest part of the palace. These vaults belonged to the Duke of Buckingham, way before the residence was even considered a royal residence.